Hey guys, David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today we want to talk about misters. Not Mr. Me, but Mr. Spray Misters. And so these spray misters are really new for watercolorists, and I found a couple of problems we've been having with them, and it's not a bad problem. It's just that I noticed that we're using them sometimes like the old sprayers, and they're not like the old sprayers, and they're very much a mist that comes out of them. And so a couple of the things I've noticed is that some people shoot themselves in the face for one, and they put their thumb on here and they shoot like this, and all of a sudden you don't realize that you're shooting yourself in the face because they think it's in the back, like you're pumping it, like this, a pumper. And they are pumps, so it's not like a sprayer where you spray and it shoots out. This is like a pump, and then it mists for a while. See how it goes out for a while, and see how much of a mist it is in front of my face. So I'm spraying in front of my face. So it's a mist, and the thing is that that can be a problem when you're trying to soak your paper. A lot of times when we use 140-pound paper, what's happening is we're wet in the back, right? And we're gluing it down, not gluing it, but we're putting it down to a board so that it lays flat, right? We're wetting the back, and it's not soaking into the paper because it's a mist of water, and it does not soak in, and which makes it hard then also to get, like, you're not working when you do that to do a first wash. When you're doing that, it doesn't soak into the paper, so you're not getting it to do a really smooth wash because it's all about the paint and the pigment, right? I mean, the paint and the water that's gonna make it nice and smooth and stuff. So if you're using a mister, it just lays on top of the paper. It does not go in. I can prove it because in this mister, I mix some acrylic paint and some green paint and water, and you're gonna see it's gonna come out a little bit thick because it has pigment in it now. So I'm just going to spray this. I'm going to show you that it sits on top. And so it's going to give you little dots here because I think it's got paint in there. And so you can see I made a little bit of green, but it's giving me little things. And I think, like I said, you're not supposed to put paint in these, just water. They're like for hairdressers to kind of, put in on the hair and mist the hair a little bit. But for watercolors, it's really neat that they do, it sits on top. But if you want it to soak into the paper, then you got to use your brush and brush it into the paper. And I think because I put paint in there, that's why I'm getting some of these big dots. Because normally I don't get big dots like that, but because I put paint in it, so I will use one that doesn't have it. You can see that it comes in really nice and misty, and no glumps. Now what it's doing is adding more water, but see how it's staying on top and bubbling now? It doesn't soak in it because it's little particles of water, and it doesn't soak into the paper. And that can be a problem because you'll get dots like this, and it'll give you little dots depending on what kind of paper you use too. It'll give you dots. So what you do is after you spray it or mist it, then take your brush and spread it out. Spread out the water, and what's going to happen now it's going to finally go into the paper because before it's sitting on top. It's sitting on top of the paper, and it's not smoothing itself out. But now I'm putting the water all together, making it nice and smooth, and now it's soaking in. It's soaking in. And so again, if you're doing that with on dry paper and just misting it without doing it first with wet wash, like with a brush, it's just going to sit on top, and it'll give you little dots sometimes too because it's penetrating just parts of these little specks or dots, and so you get dots when you go to paint. And I've done that a couple of times where I started paintings and there's like a bunch of dots on everything, and I'm like, why is it doing that? So we just finally figured that out, and we were wetting the back of 140-pound paper, and it was not laying flat because it wasn't soaking in. So even when when you try to soak it into the paper, use your brush first. Like take your brush first and wet it, and then the mister is great for after it's dry, and you want to then go into a painting. So let's say we take a painting, and so you can see right there it got smooth. Let's take a painting. We got a painting here, and so if I take a painting, two paintings. So if I take a painting like this and I want to redo a certain area, and I don't want it to penetrate into the paper because I kind of want it to sit on top, and otherwise what happens is I'm taking what's on there already and bringing it up out of the paper. So if you miss something, and again, it's not a sprayer where you spray and shoot. It's you take it and you put it like this and you let it fall on it. And you don't need much of the water, the mist, because it's really, really wet, the mist. And most people use way too much. They pump it way too much. So you pump it. And so again, I'm going to show you here. I'm going to pump it, and you just pump like one time, and you just go over here like this. I can't do it in this thing, but I'm just going to put it like this. There was like 3 little pumps, and now this is wet, and so it's laying on top of that. So if I wanted to do something in here, I could just like take your brush and then go over it, and then it goes right above it, and so it's not hurting what you already done, because it's misted, it's watery now. But always take your brush and kind of go over that mist, and real lightly, and then it's wet enough to do like your first wash, like your wet into wet wash, because then, some people I notice they go like this, they shoot it like this, and then you get way too much water. Now there's a puddle right there, and you can't see it, I'm sure, but it's a puddle of water when you shoot it. So that's too much water. So it's a mist. Again, it's a mist from the side, and let it fall on top of it, and don't go like this a bunch of times, because this can be way too wet. Because it's really a good thing to have, because you can go back into an area without disturbing what you had underneath. And again, it's a mist that you get, and so remember that you're not soaking the paper. It's not going into the paper. So if you want it to go into the paper, you got to take your brush after you misted it, and then just real lightly go across like this. Really lightly go across, and then just put your paint, your water over it. And it's kind of nice, because then it's like it didn't disturb what's underneath it. And this is the paper I'm using on this sailboat, was a very cheap paper, so it doesn't soak in as it was for one. And on cheap paper, paint doesn't soak in as much. But see, I didn't disturb what was underneath, and so now I can go in with another color, or I can even rub out. I can take out, because this is paper I can rub out. See, I can just take things out of there, because it re-wets it and sits on top until you brush it. All right, so just one of the things I wanted to mention, and because we are starting to use these misters quite a bit, and they're very good for watercolors. Now, I wouldn't put green paint or whatever paint into the mister. This one may be ruined after this, because it was an ink that I put in there that made the paper or the thing green. But if you want that certain look, that's fine. This is the look of green, and I mean, it's almost like an airbrush basically. But remember how it was when you first did it. And here I can do it again. This is again, because if you missed it on top, you're gonna get dots. You're gonna get dots and stuff. And see, even after it's wet, it's when you put the mist on, you're gonna get little dots, and that's gonna stay on top. It's not gonna soak into the paper, because again, it's not a big puddle of water. It's not a lot of water, and it's little droplets of water, and it will make dots. But see how those dots are really small, and they're sitting on top of the paper. But if you take your brush and you can rub them into that, you can do that. But just something I needed you to understand about these misters, because they are not sprayers. The sprayers don't put out as much of a mist. They put on a lot of water and a little bit of a mist, but not like this. And the sprayer, there are actual other sprayers, like I know the handheld ones you're pumping like this. Those put out way too much water a lot of times, and also give you little dots too. But so that's what I wanted to bring to you this week in my newsletter. And it's one of those things that is kind of funny. I just realized that when we were in my workshops, the last round of workshops I had, we were doing this, and I was just wondering why we're not making the paper go flat. And it was because we're soaking the back of the 140-pound paper, and what's happening is it's not soaking in. Because sometimes when you want the paper to lay flat on a plexiglass or whatever, and you want to wet the back so it doesn't wrinkle the 140-pound paper, you want it to soak into the paper and not just be on the surface. And so that was one of the reasons that it wasn't working for us. And so that's one of the things I saw, and I wanted to bring up to your attention, right? And so use your mister correctly and rub it afterwards, and just know that when you're misting it, it's sitting on top. All right, until Thursday, we will be doing a mountain scene this Thursday, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.